Good Saturday morning. Dan with foul play. The wind is not blowing. Can you believe it? If Kansas were over the ocean, it would be called tropical storm. Ba-dum-bum, bing. So I'm coming out to do chores on this Saturday morning. There's fog, you can see. And the first chore up for bids, first item up for bids, you know, the little yodel guy going up the hill on The Price is Right. We have a meat bird that's struggling to walk. I noticed it a couple days ago. And there's our girls. There's our big, muddy, wet, happy girls. Aren't ya? Nina and Peekaboo. There's the guineas. Act like they're starving. But we got little Mae West in here. You see her, she's the one on the ground. We're gonna let the meat birds out. Big Hoss is not doing too bad. And they've been laying eggs. I'll show you the other 4 chicks here in just a little bit, the meat bird chicks. And Oreo from last video. I'm going to give you an update on my health too, but first things first, we're going to give her a little pill. It's an anti-inflammatory, and we'll see how she's walking. We may have to consider processing her. Alright kids. How my girl? How am I doing, Mae West? How you doing, sweetheart? Yeah, struggling, aren't you? Alright, stand by while I give her this pill. Now we have to check on Swiss Miss and her baby. It looks like a feather bomb went off in there. So I'm just going to open up the... Easy for me to say. Open up the door and we'll show you Swiss Miss and her baby. Of course, they're still inside. Keep them warm. So we have the warming lights. Have one on 2 different circuits in case one fails. We still had some warmth because we still had some fairly cold days. Now, all this black is not poo. Those are black feathers from Mama. I think she's molting. And here's little Oreo. And Mama has been a good, diligent mama taking care of this little baby inside. It just has not been warm enough to take them outside to introduce them to the main flock just yet. Release the clucking! I'm going to show you our 4 babies that we hatched out, I think roughly 6 weeks ago. We have a couple of roo surprises. Come on, sweetheart. Going out? There you go. So I have them over. We do have them outside. And Miss Bubbles. Miss Bubbles. I don't see her in there. She was just in there. So we have 4 babies. 2 of them are roos. And that one right there, I kid you not, started crowing at 5 weeks old. Up in our room in the brooder. And so he's a roo and he's a roo. They're on kind of in the middle. We got 2 roos and 2 hens. They're doing good. But that roo that's the darkest, he's a little bit aggressive. Let's put it that way. He's going to be the first one to freezer camp, I'm pretty sure. But there they are from last month. Welcome back. It's been a long day of work here on this Saturday. And I'm going to introduce you to some super cuteness that we have inside the house. Some very sweet additions to the Sunny Slope Funny Farm family. Say that 3 times in a row. So I'm going to give you a quick update on my health. A lot of people have been very curious about that, and obviously my kidney situation it's pretty serious, really. And My kidney doctor reached out to me this last week and asked me which health system I would be interested in going for a transplant referral. And I said, well, they said, where do you live? I said, I'm in southeast Kansas, and they really didn't know the closest. And I said, well, our two options really are Kansas City, Tulsa, Denver, or Oklahoma City. So Tulsa and KU. KU has an excellent reputation for transplant success. So my labs are teetering on the edge. So I was treated in the emergency room early last Saturday, a week ago. I was very, very ill. My joints had flared up again. I had not had steroids in a number of weeks. And the thing about steroids is your body makes those through your adrenal glands naturally. Not that we hit to pump you up steroids, not those steroids. But your body makes those naturally. And since I've had to, and for good reason, be on steroids for so long now, a year or two, actually almost a couple of years, consistently, so my adrenal glands don't necessarily have to work, right? So will they kick back in? I don't know. So one of the things that was happening to me last weekend, and not only were my joints flaring severely, I couldn't walk, I couldn't bear weight, and I was having probably what would be described as adrenal crisis. Super bad nausea, super horrible fatigue and weakness and cold and just those kind of type symptoms. I was very ill. And so the emergency room doctor was able to recognize that, and based on, it was the first time he ever seen me, but he was able to recognize, through our report, especially because we're nurses. So we're pretty informed. And he treated me with some appropriate steroids, and then my kidney doctor placed me back on steroids for another attempt at tapering. So that's kind of where we're at right now. As far as the arthritis is concerned, it is what they call pseudo rheumatoid arthritis. So I did the scan, and they found not so much a lot of uric acid crystals in the joints, but calcium crystals in the joints. And there's that little crow. Okay, I'm going to interrupt you here for just a little second here. There's that little fella in there. There's that, you can't see him through the sun, but that little bitty bit in there is doing his best at crowing from the bit. Anyway, I couldn't believe that. I thought somebody was attacking him. That's his little crow, and Bubbles is in there again. Bubbles. So you're trying to let us know that Bubbles is in your pen, aren't you, buddy? Bubbles, what are you doing in there? Why are you in the baby pen? I'm gonna have to get her out of there. Even through the bungee cords, that little bugger gets in here. Bubbles. Bubbles. I just tripped and got caught. Almost fell. Bubbles, what are you doing, honey? Get out of there. So I may have to edit this, but that little guy, that little bugger right there, little crowing boy, that is just astounding. He's just a few weeks old. So I'll stop the segment here, and then we'll kind of pick up. So what I was saying, the results were what they call pseudo rheumatoid arthritis, or pseudo gout is even another appropriate term. They tried to put me on a medication we're all kind of familiar with. It's a medication that has a lot of uses. I'll just say that it's on YouTube, it's probably unsayable. But it's a medication that's been around for a long time, but the long story made short, I didn't tolerate it at all. It made me very ill, made my stomach ill. I tried every which way but Sunday to try to take that through my rheumatologist advice, and I just didn't tolerate it. So I reached out to my rheumatologist this last week, and there's not a lot of options left short of steroids. Continuing those, obviously, will do that. Because in the short term, that at least gets me back on my feet reasonably well. So that's the update. So as far as like our animals, we are a little bit concerned because we could at any given moment have to find ourselves traveling to the emergency room or getting referred to, you know, a larger health system if I were to take a turn for the worst. And that's going to happen one of these days. And it's just, you know, it's hard to wrap your mind around transplantation. I mean, that's something they don't teach you to cope with in high school or college, right? So there's a learning curve here, and a lot of folks have gone before me, and I will make that journey. You know, when will that journey be? Next month, next year? I don't know, but it's certainly coming. And it's been on my plate for a long time. I've had kidney disease for decades. I've accomplished a lot with kidney disease. For those of you who don't know me, I've run marathons. I've run the Boston Marathon twice, qualified and ran it twice. I was an excellent marathon runner with kidney disease and gout and arthritis. And I ride my bike across Kansas, me and Mrs. Foulplay, and we've done all kinds of great events. So I can look back and be proud of what I've accomplished despite some of my, but it's at some point that things like anemia and the steroid use have, you know, they kind of take its toll on its body. And so my goal right now is to take care of the farm as best I can, and that we're going to keep moving forward here. And we're getting projects done. Sometimes it's one day, rest a day, go back again another day, or just work a few hours and just get a few things done. And that's how it goes. But we're still moving forward. And we have a fence that we just built recently, Mrs. Foulplay and I, and basically we take the approach now. There's Bubbles. Hey, Missy. She is so sweet. This is an Americana. She lays a blue-green egg, and she is a sweetheart. But she gets into the baby's pen, don't you, babe? And she's a smart little cookie, too. She's a sharp little chicken, this girl here. So we take the approach that every time we do chores, we make sure everything's filled. Their water, their food, as best we can. And we've got some little ones that could be an exception to that if I get transferred to a large health system and I have something very emergent and we had to leave the farm suddenly for 2 or 3 days. Would they have enough food? Would they have enough water? You know, we have some people that can kind of pop in. Our granddaughter can open the gates and she kind of knows what to do with the chickens. So basically what we've been doing is the 3-day rule. 3 minutes without oxygen, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. So we try to think, if we had to be gone for 3 days, how will our animals fare out? And so basically we make sure everything is filled with water and food the best we can. If we did have to leave suddenly and go on something that is urgent, and we know that at least the majority of our animals will still be okay. They'll find food, they'll peck around, they'll seek out food. The dogs will be okay. We got lots of water out here in the chicken yard, and it rains or something, and they'll find some water. The guineas will be okay too, and the meat bird pen and the motel 6.5, they've got plenty of food and water in there to last them for 3 days. There's not too many of them in there, and so that's the approach we take now. That's kind of how we're living. So I don't mean to go into a long ordeal, but thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers. We need them because it's a big deal, and we always knew the day would come. But when it comes, it still is. It's hard to wrap your mind around it. So let's move on to some cuteness, shall we? Stand by. What do I hear chirping in our room again? Look at this. We have 3 little ducklings. The one dark one on the right bottom is the only one we hatched here at home. Of all the 8 or 9 eggs that we had in the incubator, she's the only one that made it. This is a product of duct tape and his girls from outside. We have one little duckling here, just hatched. We're gonna name it Solo. And we call her Solo. And once I moved her from the incubator to the brooder, she was just all by herself, and hence the name. So I ran to the farm store, and they happened to have a few ducks left, thankfully. So I got Solo a little helpers. The one on the left is Wookiee, and the little thank you for that. And the little yellow one, which will be white one, will be Obi-Wan. Now you see a theme here, because we're going to introduce you to bum bum ba bum 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 ba bum 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 Vader. Yes, we have Vader. Who's Vader? He's new to the house too. We'll show you Vader. But welcome our little babies, and they're doing great. Well, here's Vader. He is a cat that showed up at my brother's house some weeks ago and took a liking to them. Now my brother, we have 2 brothers. One is a cat guy. He lives in West Wichita. He has 5 cats. And my other brother lives in Central Wichita. He has dogs. But this little cat showed up at their house, and they noticed something really extraordinary about this guy. And they went ahead and took pity on him, I guess, for lack of a better term, and gave him some food and a little shelter. And they recognized that he has a sweet disposition. He's kind of playful right now, but he has a sweet disposition. And when my brother inquired to the Humane Society about bringing him in for adoption, they said as soon as you bring him in, he'd be euthanized. And he just didn't have the heart to ask for that, so he reached out to me and my other brother, who already has 5 cats. So if he can have 5 cats in West Wichita, we can do 6 cats on the farm. So we took this guy in. We made sure he wasn't chipped. He is obviously, somebody has worked with this guy, and he is a sweet-natured, sweet disposition. And my brother and his wife, and I'm just proud of them for recognizing that, to see that in this guy and give him a chance for life. So we can't rescue them all, but we can rescue this one. And so we're going to take him to the vet next week, and we've been kind of keeping him in the house for now so he knows where his new home is. And again, we made sure he wasn't chipped so there wasn't somebody missing him, and he has not been neutered. But somebody at some point has worked with this cat. We suspect he's between 2 and 4 years old, and we are just super thrilled to have him part of our family here. So some of the other cats aren't thrilled about it. Lilo's never thrilled about anybody, but this is a Vader because of his color. He's great with children. He's a snuggly. He's sweet. He comes when he's called. So we're proud to have him, and he's getting playful now. Hey, buddy, you can get playful. Welcome, Vader.